Mic check, mic check, mic check. 1 2 1 2. Mic check, mic check. Look good. Thank you, sir. Anybody else need a mic check? Oh, 1 2 1 2. Mic check, mic check, mic check. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Good. Mic check. Mic check, mic check. Good. Yep, you good?
Is that all the lights we're gonna use?
I can put up whatever you want. I got
If you have no light, but I'm just trying to get a good light on us, whoever, the lights we're gonna use.
That's fine. About 41. Yeah, so yeah. Got 5.
We need more light. More light.
You good?
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Nosotros estábamos ahí, pero estaba un muchacho. Y Erika que está de cumpleaños. Contigo ahí en el tiro. Ella está ahí.
What's that next year? For the Coke.
Tengo otra. ¿La ocupas?
We're on Mexican time.
Tengo 20 minutos. No, no, pero lo quito, por eso lo veo.
Si no, borra la mía. Usa la mía, está bien.
This time it was my turn to be late. 95 minutes.
Blanco and is that street by the HEB on San Pedro? Oh, wait.
And it's a Friday. Why are we here on a Friday afternoon? That's what I want to know.
He would be the
So we
ender.
deliberately set it up so that the English and the Spanish speakers are always a five.
I wasn't gonna say fine, but she just wants to
And
know.
so what we wanted to do was do the English and then do the Spanish language
Check, check, check. 1 2 my check, test, test. Okay. My check, my check. 1 2 1 2. Testing, testing. It's good? Good.
In Spanish, please.
1 2 3, 1 2 3.
Oh, my time's not here yet.
Is it working? Okay, so, but here's the deal. The Spanish, so that we did this on purpose this way, so that there's no fights, okay? Spanish language goes, we're gonna do the English first, and then the Spanish language will, cause, I think there's another station that's coming, and we wanted to give everybody, that way you can move to the middle and do all that kind of stuff, okay?
English, French, Japanese.
No worries? Okay.
We got a little bit of a problem here. I gotta open up my notebook and we got some of these that are gonna be in the way. Can we move them forward?
Yeah. We will figure this out.
I just need room to.
He's gonna put his notebook right here.
Oh, gee.
Ahí está.
There you go, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right. Here, why don't you put, you can put your,
Okay.
your deal right there.
Okay.
And they can.
There you go. Is that good?
Listen, you're good?
Yeah, sure. Everybody? All right, here we go. All right. That's perfect. Are we ready? Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I have some prepared statements, and at the end of it, I will certainly answer any questions that you have. Public safety is important to me. I, too, have a family. I understand the importance of keeping our community safe. I get phone calls and updates every day, all night long. Sometimes at 3 in the morning, every night, about what's happening on the streets of San Antonio. And I don't like what I've seen over the last several weeks. I understand that every one of these officers who has been injured has a family like mine. Their jobs are among the most difficult. Imagine what it's like to walk out of your home every day and go to work not knowing if you're going to come back. Imagine what it's like leaving your family and they pray for you that you come home safe. I understand that every crime victim has a son, a daughter, a parent, a grandparent, or a brother and sister who feels the victim's pain. Every night, as I say, I get phone calls about what is happening on the streets of our city. But I want you to know what's happening in our office. We have achieved a lot in the Bexar County District Attorney's Office. Our office receives about 50,000 cases annually, and they are handled by about 200 criminal prosecutors. We've seen, what you need to know is that we've seen the highest murder conviction rate in Bexar County that we've had in over 12 years in our office. Our conviction rates, for example, for felony DWIs is over 90%. We've gone to trial 150 times this year and gotten a guilty verdict. 90% of those jury trials have been for violent crimes. This year alone, we've had 1,762 convictions for violent crimes. By SAPD's own statistics, violent crime in general is down. It is officer-involved shootings that are up. As a prosecutor, my role is set by the Constitution and by the laws of Texas. There are times that I don't necessarily agree with the law, but my oath, my obligation is to follow the law. Texans have a constitutional right to a bond. Let me say that again. Every Texan has a constitutional right to a bond. A judge, not a prosecutor, must set that bond. Unfortunately, our bond system is cash-based. A bond can be $1 million, but if a defendant has the ability to post $1 million bond, then he can get out. The misconception in the public is that bonds are set high to keep people in jail, and that's not the purpose of the bond. The purpose of a bond is to ensure the presence of that individual in court. As a matter of fact, it is against the law to deliberately set a bond so high that it is oppressive. The idea that a third person, a family member, a bondsman, is responsible to make sure that that person appears in court, that's exactly what the purpose of a bond is. And my role is to follow the law. That is the law. And it is my obligation to enforce it and to uphold it. Despite our constraints under the law, we are continuing to do our job in the district attorney's office. Our prosecution of cases is aggressive and it is ongoing. A district attorney like myself is part of the judicial branch. We don't make the laws, but we merely implement them and we enforce it. It is the legislature that is the appropriate forum for a discussion on changing the bail bond system. This year, during the session, there was no real effort to amend the Constitution regarding a defendant's right to bail. As a matter of fact, Senator Joan Huffman raked the judiciary over the coals last session on the bail bond issue, but she didn't succeed in changing the law. The men and women of our office will continue to work hard to make our community safer and better. Our statistics are very good, but again, we will continue to make every effort to ensure the safety of our community. Having said that, I'm now ready to take any questions that you may have.
What is the action plan moving forward to reduce this problem that has brought us to this news conference?
Well, the problem is because we currently find ourselves in the bond system where every person that's accused of a crime is entitled to a bond. The only way that you can resolve that, the only way you can change that is to change the bail bond system, and that only happens in the legislature. What we can do and we are doing is collaborating better with law enforcement, communicating with them, ensuring that we get the kind of cases in our office where we can expedite the prosecution of those cases and do everything we can to ensure that those individuals are accountable for the crimes that they commit. What we cannot do is we cannot suggest that someone stays in jail pending their trial. They have a right to bond out because that's what the Constitution calls for. In the meantime, we are going to do everything that we can to move forward. That's part of why I called this press conference, because I've heard time and time again that the reason that these individuals have committed these shootings is because of my lax bond policy. Folks, I don't have a bond policy that requires that our prosecutors recommend low bonds on felony offenses. And so therefore, I don't have a lax bond policy because I don't require our prosecutors to recommend low bonds. I require them to use their better judgment, to review these cases as they see fit, and to recommend appropriate bonds. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, because I looked at the numbers myself, in the last 4 months or so, our last 50 recommendations on felony offenses include, for example, on murder cases, the average bond that we recommend is about $150,000. On aggravated assaults with a deadly weapon, we recommend about $75,000 or so. Aggravated robbery, about the same, $75,000 to $100,000. So we're doing what we have to do to recommend high bonds. The way the system works is after we recommend the bond, the magistrate judge makes the decision on where to set the bond. But the problem is, the reality is that our bond system is based on a cash system, not a risk-based system. And unless and until that changes, we're going to continue to see people that are out in the community that may commit these kinds of events. Now, the reality is these 5 shootings involved 6 individuals, not all of whom had violent criminal histories. There were 2 of them where there was some indication that there was a violent history, but the other 4 individuals were all arrested for non-violent offenses that involved either drugs or misdemeanors or offenses that would not have indicated, that would not have raised any red flags to either the prosecutors at the magistrate's office or with the magistrate judge that there was a need to to set the bond any higher than was would normally be set. Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Gonzales, yes, today, Congressman Tony Gonzales said he was gonna quote, go to war with, the Bexar County DA. Can you respond to that?
Well, considering that Mr. Gonzales is my congressman, I guess I better talk to him and find out what he means by that. Because I'm not his enemy. He's not my enemy. We're supposed to be working together, especially because I'm one of his constituents. So I would urge him to engage in a conversation with me to find out what it is that he thinks that we need to go to war over. It's unfortunate that he and other people have forgotten that law enforcement and prosecutors are on the same side. We're all about public safety. We're all about ensuring the safety of this community. So it's unfortunate when you hear that kind of rhetoric out in the community. I welcome the opportunity to sit down with them and engage in the discussion and see if we can agree to move forward.
Judge Sakai was talking to a lot of us today about his efforts to get everybody around the same table to really talk about this issue. Why has it taken until now, until we see so many officers shot, to get everybody in the room together to talk about this issue? Because like you said, this has been around for a while.
Well, the reality is we have been talking. We have had regular meetings with the chief. We've had meetings with the city manager. We've had meetings with the assistant city manager to try and iron out these problems, to try and improve the prosecution of these cases, to try and resolve the issues we've had with the delays in getting some of these cases to us. So this is nothing new, but unfortunately there's been discussion in the public about the shortcomings that resulted in these kinds of events. The reality is, folks, nobody in this system, no one person can be held responsible for what is happening now. None of us have crystal balls. None of us can predict when we're looking at a person and deciding where to recommend a bond, or a judge deciding where to set a bond. There's no way to predict whether or not that individual is going to shoot at an officer 6 months or a year, especially where there's no indication from that person's criminal history of any violent behavior. So we have had those discussions. What has happened is this is somewhat of an anomaly. I've been doing this for 35 years. I started as a young prosecutor, spent 20 years or so as a defense lawyer, and back as the chief prosecutor in this office. I've never seen this, where you've had a cluster of violence directed to our law enforcement community. As I say, it's very unfortunate. We want our officers to do their job. We want them to feel that they can perform their job without fear that whoever they approach is going to pull a gun on them. So we're going to do everything that we can to ensure the safety of these officers and to punish those individuals that commit crimes. Let me remind you that in our office, we have prosecuted individuals that have committed crimes against officers. And I didn't take a victory lap, but we sought the death penalty against a cop killer early in my administration because I felt like that was the right thing to do. I will continue to do what I have to do to protect our law enforcement community, to respect the job that they do. But folks, we have to work within the Constitution. I have a job to do, and I have to follow the law, and that's what we'll continue to do.
There's a town hall on Monday that's going to have you, Chief McManus, Garcia Rocha. What do you expect to get out of that?
Well, I hope we can have a positive dialogue. I hope we can have a discussion going forward. I hope we can meet in the middle and all agree that it is not in the interest of this community to point fingers. It's not in anybody's interest to continue to bicker over whose fault it is or how this happened. We need to come together. Again, we're on the same side. We need to find some common ground so we can continue to do the best we can to keep our community safe.
There were some changes recently that allowed misdemeanor criminals to, not have to go to jail. Judge Sakai mentioned earlier in the news conference that perhaps that needs to be reevaluated. That non-violent criminals should be maybe staying in jail longer.
Well, I don't know specifically what he may have been referring to, but I will tell you that we had some policies in our office. Remember that I came to office with a platform of criminal justice reform, and one of the reasons that I introduced reform to Bexar County is because we have limited jail space. We only have so many man hours and resources to devote to prosecution, and so my goal was to focus on violent crime. We did initiate some policies where we were looking at nonviolent, low-level offenses and making decisions to decline to prosecute. That no longer exists. We have done away with the declination policies that we had in the office. We're going to review every case. We have been doing that since before September 1st on a case-by-case basis. But we still are going to continue to focus on violent crime. And we're going to do everything we can to address all the needs of the community, not only violent crime, but property crime. We're seeing a lot of car burglaries nowadays. We certainly are focusing on that. So we're going to do whatever we need to do to make sure that we get the job done.
Last year in your budget, you got 17 new staff, if my memory serves me correct, to speed up the caseload. Were you able to get those 17 people today, and has it helped?
Most of those positions were to deal with the backlog that we saw during COVID. During that time, we went almost 2 years without any jury trials, so that created a backlog, especially in the family violence cases. Because of the ability to get these positions funded, we were able to reduce the backlog to almost nothing. So that was a huge success. We will continue to move forward to try and reduce the backlogs that we saw during COVID. But yes, we did see some success with regard to those positions. And they weren't just prosecutors, they were advocates and other positions, paralegals and investigators. So we were able to use those positions to reduce our backlog.
But how short-staffed are you right now when it comes to prosecutors? About how many more prosecutors do you need?
We are about 20 prosecutors down, which is about where we were at the beginning. We saw a reduction, and we're kind of back up to it now, which is typical of any administration. But what happened was we lost a number of our people at the beginning of the year, and you know, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about these exit interviews. The majority of the reason that they gave for resigning was pay. Well, as a result of the graciousness of the Commissioner's Court, and I can't stop thanking them, we have reduced the amount of people that have resigned, because a lot of them now are being paid what they need to be paid. They are being adequately compensated, especially some of the newer prosecutors, where we saw a lot of people leaving at the third chair level. They are being compensated enough to be able to continue to work here.
How long do you think it'll take, though, to get those positions filled?
I'm hoping we can get them filled soon, and it would be nice to be able to fill them all by the end of the year. You know, we just saw a wave of lawyers, or rather law students that took the bar. A lot of them are hearing that they passed the bar. So we're hoping that a number of them will be hired from our office. We have a number of what are called pre-commitments, where we're waiting for them to hear if they pass the bar, and if that happens, then we'll be able to fill those slots. But we are continuing to recruit. So if there's anybody out there that's interested in gaining some experience as a prosecutor and some serious trial work, then we're certainly interested in interviewing for possible employment.
No, I really appreciate y'all being here. I know you have a commitment here at 5 p.m.
question.
And then we need to get back here for the Spanish language interviews.
One more question for you.
Sure.
You've been doing a lot of news conferences. We keep hearing about a possible meeting coming up with all leaders, but these potential criminals are still out there. There's still danger in the community. What do you say to the community? How do they sleep better at night, knowing that that their communities are safe and their law enforcement are safe?
We're going to continue to do our job. We're going to continue to fulfill our role, regardless of when this meeting ever takes place. We have dedicated prosecutors that work around the clock. We have a 24/7 magistration system. We have people that are working overtime to make sure that we do our job. We're continuing to prepare for trial. We're continuing to go to trial, and we're continuing to get positive verdicts. So we'll continue to do our job, and I've said all along, I'm willing to come to the table and help come up with a solution.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you all.